A song title ruining lives sounds crazy, until you take a deeper look. I noticed a disturbing pattern. What you'll hear is one of the wildest and most compelling theories in recent music history. 4 rappers have released a song with this name, and they've all tragically passed away. There are others who have released a song under this name who have lost close friends right in front of them, or saw their lives take a sudden dark turn. This could all be a coincidence, but there could equally be something more sinister at play. In the book of Proverbs, there's a line which reads, "Death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit." And while this all might sound a bit crazy at first, if an up-and-coming artist looked through all of these cases one by one, they just might think twice about releasing a song with this name. The first known appearance of this curse was experienced by the metal band Anthrax, who named their 1985 EP after its opening song, Armed and Dangerous. A year later, in the fall of 1986, Anthrax were touring as a support act for Metallica. During that fateful tour, they had a long bus ride from Copenhagen in Denmark to Stockholm in Sweden, which involved traveling through the rugged terrain of Scandinavia. During the early hours of the night, Metallica members Cliff Burton and Kirk Hammett were arguing over sleeping spots, so they decided to draw some cards. According to Hammett, the first card Cliff pulls out is the Ace of Spades, and he looks at me and says, "I want your bunk." And I said, "Fine, take my bunk. I'll sleep up front. That's probably better anyway." While the Ace of Spades is viewed as the highest possible card, it's also associated with death. While driving through the night, the bus seemed to skid on some ice and overturned. The members of Anthrax all survived this incident, but when checking upon other passengers, they were delivered with some devastating news. During this crash, Cliff Burton had been horrifically thrown from his bunk through the back window, and the bus landed on top of him. At just 24 years of age, and while touring as a member of the biggest metal band on the planet, he was sadly pronounced dead. By 1992, Anthrax singer Joey Belladonna was let go from the band due to creative differences. And it's quite strange that the singer of the song, Armed and Dangerous, and the person who literally uttered those words was made to leave. Ultimately, you could view Cliff Burton's death as a freak accident, and Joey Belladonna's later demise as part of the cutthroat world of music. But as the years went on, more and more coincidences would unfold, some of which would be too difficult to ignore. The 80s was seen as the golden age for heavy metal music, and the following decade would be a golden age for hip-hop, and Biggie Smalls would become to rap music what Metallica had become to metal. But just like Cliff Burton, Biggie Smalls would not live to see the true impact he had made on the music scene. And while Biggie didn't specifically release a song named Armed and Dangerous, you'll see how after his death, just how he became connected to this curse. Ultimately, there was a sense that Biggie knew that death was around the corner. His most legendary album is called Ready to Die, and on the song Suicidal Thoughts, he wrote the lyrics, "I swear to God, I feel like death is effing calling me." In March of 1997, Biggie traveled to LA to shoot the music video for his song Hypnotize, and later attended the 11th annual Soul Train Music Awards, followed by an after party hosted by Steve Stout in the Hollywood Hills. This was during the peak of the East Coast-West Coast rivalry, and 6 months after the tragic shooting of Tupac Shakur. And Biggie had traveled from New York not to stir up tensions, but rather hoped to make peace with his enemies. Sadly, this peacemaking effort was unsuccessful, and things instead turned incredibly violent. At 12:30 a.m., Biggie left the party with his entourage in a green GMC Suburban. At around 12:45 a.m., Biggie's car stopped at a red light at the corner of Wilshire Boulevard and South Fairfax Avenue. A dark Chevy Impala pulled up beside Biggie's vehicle. The driver, described as a black male wearing a blue suit and bow tie, rolled down the window and fired 6 shots with a 9mm pistol. Biggie was clearly the target and was hit 4 times. Biggie was rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, but at approximately 1:15 a.m., he was pronounced dead. Interestingly, he was only 24 years of age, which is the same age as Cliff Burton, but the bigger coincidence came after his death. On March 25th, less than 3 weeks after passing away, Biggie's new album, Life After Death, appeared on the record shelves. On the song Notorious Thugs, Biggie opens his first verse with the phrase, "Armed and Dangerous." His murder to this very day remains unsolved. So far, we have only found 2 examples supposedly connected to this curse, and might seem a bit tenuous, but it was during the 2010s when we saw the very first example of someone releasing a song specifically named Armed and Dangerous and tragically passing away soon afterward. And this is when the curse really started to take shape. Chinx Drugs was a relatively well-known name in the New York hip-hop scene, and just like Biggie, he lived in an environment where thoughts of death constantly occupied his mind. On his 2013 song Maybe, he rapped, "Certain things in life just go unexplained, death's a sure thing." Later that year, he would release another song titled Armed and Dangerous. By 2015, he had finally landed his own record deal and was signed to French Montana's Coke Boy Records. Ultimately, his life couldn't have gotten much better, and after many setbacks was set to launch his debut album, but this would all change on May 17, 2015. That night, Chinx had just finished performing at Club Red Wolf in Brooklyn. After the show, he and his friend Antar Al-Ziadi drove to a hookah bar which turned out to be closed, so they decided to head home for the night. While driving his Porsche alongside Queens Boulevard, Chinx stopped at a red light and history seemed to repeat itself once again. Suddenly, another car pulled up beside them and shots were fired, striking Chinx at least 8 times. Despite his injuries, he managed to drive away from the scene and pulled into the parking lot of a nearby Dunkin' Donuts. The other vehicle then fled. Chinx was rushed to Jamaica Hospital Medical Center but was later pronounced dead. His friend El-Ziadi was in a relatively stable condition by Sunday and eventually recovered. Authorities believe Chinx was the intended target as more shots were directed at him. In the aftermath of his death, conspiracy theories suggested that French Montana was somehow involved. However, this was proven untrue and the killer turned out to be someone Chinx had an argument with as far back as 2009 in Rikers Island. And when this person saw one of his enemies finally accomplish one of his dreams, he bitterly decided to cut his life short. One of the most heartwarming moments about his passing is that his friends worked really hard to make sure that his debut album, Welcome to JFK, was completed and released. In the aftermath of this tragedy, a more clear-cut pattern would emerge. In 2018, not one but 2 rappers would release a song named Armed and Dangerous, and both would suffer bad fortune afterward. Glock 9 is a Florida rapper who is heralded as the next Kodak Black, but it's unlikely that he'll now ever enjoy the same success as Kodak given what has happened to him in recent years. Throughout 2018, Glock 9 gained a lot of momentum through having videos on World Star Hip Hop, and one of the songs released through this platform was named Armed and Dangerous. In August of 2018, he had his dream come true when he was signed to Cash Money Records. However, in October, his legal troubles would kill all of this momentum. Glock 9 was arrested for possession of a stolen Glock, and in May of 2019, he was arrested on 17 charges which broadly included carrying firearms and possessing drugs. In July of 2020, he was arrested and taken into custody for attempted second-degree murder with a firearm, among other charges, and in October, he got arrested on another set of weapons charges. Although it's incredibly common for rappers to get in trouble with the law, it was in 2021 when the federal police came calling and things started to get pretty serious. Ultimately, he pleaded guilty to possession of an unregistered firearm, aggravated identity theft, and felon in possession of a firearm. For these charges, he faced 7 years in prison. While he is thankfully still alive, this 7-year period lockup has pretty much finished any chances he had of becoming a mainstream rapper. And by 2023, it was rumored that he had been stabbed in prison where people had spread rumors that he had been telling, but there's no confirmation on that as of yet. So while Glock 9 has been somewhat luckier, releasing a song named Armed and Dangerous has corresponded with the decline of his career. The other rapper to release a song called Armed and Dangerous in 2018 was not so lucky. 3 years after Chinx's passing, Juiceworld released a song also named Armed and Dangerous. The deaths of Biggie Smalls and Chinx drugs could easily be attributed to violent environments they grew up in, but Juiceworld was different. He grew up in the suburbs of Chicago, close enough, yet was still tragically taken too soon. Armed and Dangerous was a single taken from Juiceworld's 2018 debut album Goodbye and Good Riddance, and on the No Jumper podcast, he definitely gave the impression that he was interested in the occult and the supernatural.
And knowing the right people, but I feel like the topic of like people talk about like the Illuminati and shit like that, that's been like the topic since when did people start talking about that again? Like 2008, 2007?
Probably something like that.
But I remember being young as my cousins coming in the room like, oh my God, if you fold the $20 bill this way, like the Twin Towers burning, saying all that shit. And then, I mean, I ain't really know too much what to say about it because it's like I was 7, 8 years old, hearing my favorite rappers worshiping all type. You know what I'm saying? It's just weird, bro. But I don't really think that shit got nothing to do with music.
You're famous enough that have they asked you to join the Illuminati yet?
No, I haven't gotten any phone calls.
And soon after dropping his first album, Juiceworld released another song almost predicting his own death. In rock music, there's a disturbing pattern known as the 27 Club, where artists like Jim Morrison, Jimi Hendrix, Kurt Cobain, and others all died at the age of 27. In the song Legends, Juiceworld rapped about the recent passing of XXXTentacion and Lil Peep and delivered the chilling line, "What's the 27 Club? We ain't making it past 21." And on December 8th, 2019, 6 days after his 21st birthday, Juiceworld would sadly live up to his own words. That day, Juiceworld was flying from LA to Chicago. The plane touched down at Midway International Airport, and when walking through the terminal, witnesses recalled seeing Juiceworld suffer some sort of a seizure. Police said that when paramedics finally arrived on the scene, he was bleeding from the mouth. Juiceworld was taken to Advocate Christ Medical Center in Oak Lawn, Illinois, where he was pronounced dead. The coroner ruled this death as an accidental overdose, and the rapper had some well-documented addiction and mental health struggles. In a posthumous song called All of Your Sins, Juiceworld made reference to this addiction and coincidentally made the connection between death and drawing the ace of spades. The lyrics to the song go, "Waste away playing the waiting game, drawing cards till I end up with the ace of spades, take a gamble every day." The 27 Club curse is often believed to have started with the blues artist Robert Johnson, who had a supposed pact with the devil, where in exchange for musical talent, his life was cut short. And there could be something similar going on with these cases, but back then, blues and rock music were considered devil music, which was generally because of its association with being the music of rebellion and going against, at that time, religious values. Young people these days are less so listening to rock and gravitated more towards hip-hop, so it shouldn't be unimaginable that a curse of this nature is now inflicting rap music. But this curse itself does not seem to be fueled by a pact, but the specific phrase armed and dangerous. And it's these words alone that seem to trigger the curse. In the same way that uttering the name of Shakespeare play Macbeth in a theater is said to bring about bad luck, naming your song Armed and Dangerous seems to have a similar effect. Whatever the case, 3 months later we would witness the same correlation of an artist releasing a song named Armed and Dangerous and passing away soon afterward. And this involved another legendary New York rapper who was killed in LA, and happened with another eerily strange coincidence that seemed too difficult to ignore. Pop Smoke was one of the most influential New York rappers of the 2010s and credited with rejuvenating New York hip-hop through the Brooklyn drill sound and really popularizing it, despite not being one of the early ones to adopt it. When appearing on the UK show Fire in the Booth in November of 2019, Pop Smoke freestyled a song which would soon be added to his 2020 mixtape Meet the Woo 2. This tape was released on February 7th, and the song was named Armed and Dangerous. On the day of this release, he did an interview with Angie Martinez and said something which has been looked upon now as Pop Smoke predicting his own death. 13 days later, unfortunately for Pop Smoke, when he made the tiniest of mistakes and suffered the worst consequences imaginable. He posted a photo on Instagram which accidentally showed the address of the Airbnb that he was staying in at the Hollywood Hills. At around 4:30 a.m., 5 hooded men broke into the house through the second-story balcony. Some say that it wasn't because of the Instagram and they didn't know that he was there, and there are a lot of theories that are still circulating, despite one of the shooters having done an interview afterwards with no jumper. Shortly after the break-in, an altercation occurred inside the house. Pop Smoke was shot 3 times, including a deadly gunshot wound to the chest. The intruders stole his jewelry, including a diamond-studded Rolex watch. Pop Smoke was then rushed to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, the hospital that Biggie Smalls was rushed to all those years ago, and sadly, this hospital visit would have the same outcome, where Pop Smoke was pronounced dead hours later. Naturally, LAPD suspected gang involvement due to Pop Smoke's ties to the Crips, but later concluded that it was a robbery gone wrong. In fact, these were not exactly hooded men that had broken into his home, as the oldest of them turned out to be 19, and one of them was only 15 years old. Just like Chinx Drugs, Pop Smoke's debut album Shoot for the Stars, Aim for the Moon came out after his death. What you will see in other cases is that other deaths will come at a period of time close to their debut album and when they were scheduled for stardom. None of these stars would make it past their sophomore album. And the strangest thing is, Pop Smoke was not the only person to release a song named Armed and Dangerous in 2020. Later that year, the same series of unfortunate events occurred once again, with some very similar circumstances. Like Pop Smoke, King Von was a pioneer of this new era of drill music, but was definitely a more polarizing figure. As his music career flourished, he made the wise decision to move to Atlanta to avoid issues with rival gangs and the police in Chicago, and became a part of Atlanta's thriving music scene. On October 30th, Von released his debut album Welcome to O-Block, and the opening track of the album was titled Armed and Dangerous. And 7 days later, a celebration of the release of this album would suddenly turn to tragedy. On Friday, November 7, 2020, King Von and his crew attended a club called Opium between 10 p.m. and 3 a.m. By 3 a.m., King Von was at the Monaco Hookah Lounge, where an argument ensued between his crew and another group of people associated with the rapper Quando Rondo. This situation rapidly escalated and gunshots were heard from the vicinity. Out of all the shots fired, 3 people were killed, one of which was King Von. Much like Pop Smoke and Chinx, King Von's death coincided with the release of his debut album, and the promising career they had in front of them was robbed. In 2023, a posthumous King Von single called When I Die was released, and just like many rappers from before, he was a young man almost preoccupied with the fact that he might die soon. In this song, he raps, "Don't let them goofies touch my casket when I die, and when you leave my funeral, you better slide. But if they kill King Von, then something is not right. The ops don't play with him, that happened from inside." In 2021, yet another rapper released a song named Armed and Dangerous, but thankfully didn't pass away. However, what you will see is yet another career ruined by this song title. Memphis rapper Pusha T has a story that loosely connects to the so-called Armed and Dangerous curse. In the latter 2010s, he started to garner a reputation through several different songs and signing to Gucci Mane. But like Glock 9, Shiesty was regularly in trouble with the police. One of his most heinous crimes took place in October 2020 in Bay Harbor Islands, Florida. Shiesty and his entourage met up with a group of people trying to sell them Mary J, codeine, and sneakers. However, instead of selling these items, the dealers were assaulted and robbed. Shiesty was arrested for this incident, and later that month, YWM Flyer released a song featuring Pusha T, which was titled Armed and Dangerous. And similarly to Glock 9, they started to look deeper into his criminal history and charged him, and he got into another incident at a club where he took out his firearm and fired. In 2022, Shiesty pleaded guilty to federal conspiracy charges and was sentenced to 5 years and 3 months. To this day, Pusha T hasn't released another album after his Shiesty Season project, which was released while he was still free. And then they attempted to release a deluxe as well. But since then, no music has come out for the better part of 4 years. There are some instances where a hip-hop artist has released a song named Armed and Dangerous and didn't experience any unfortunate events afterwards. And here we have the curious case of Cypress Hills' 2010 album Rise Up and the 13th track Armed and Dangerous. You would imagine something like this would completely debunk the curse or at the very least weaken its plausibility. But what separates this track from all the other examples is that this was not a debut or come-up album, but something they had released long past their peak in the 90s. So the curse only seems to follow a pattern where an up-and-coming rapper releases a song named Armed and Dangerous, and their career and livelihood may be cursed forever. Ultimately, the Armed and Dangerous might not have a distinctive enough pattern to be deemed conclusively true. Much like the 27 Club, there are common themes that explain why they have all died of premature deaths. Members of the 27 Club like Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, and Amy Winehouse all suffered from drug addiction. Similarly, there are rappers who released the song Armed and Dangerous that have all lived with the immense pressures, difficulties, and dangers of being a famous rapper in the 21st century. But maybe, just maybe, there are some artists who, in the same way we never walk under a ladder or open an umbrella inside, will still feel compelled not to release a song titled Armed and Dangerous.